Most people don't fail because they lack goals. They fail because they lack discipline. You probably set a goal before: to lose weight, to wake up earlier, to save money, to read more, or to finally quit procrastinating. And at first, you felt unstoppable. Motivation carried you through the first few days, maybe even the first few weeks. But then something happened. Life pushed back. You skipped a day at the gym. You overslept once. You ate that late night snack. And before you knew it, your new habit had slipped through your fingers like sand. We all know this feeling. We all know the sting of telling ourselves, this time will be different, only to find ourselves back where we started. The frustration isn't just about the failed habit. It's about what it means. If you can't even keep a promise to yourself, what does that say about you? That voice in your head gets louder. Maybe you're just not disciplined. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe habits just don't work for you. But here's the truth. It's not your fault. At least not in the way you think. The problem isn't you. It's the way you've been taught to build habits. You've been told discipline is about willpower, about white-knuckling your way through temptation, about just pushing harder. That's a lie. Willpower is weak. It runs out quickly. No matter how strong you are, no one can rely on willpower alone. And yet, most of us have been trying to do exactly that over and over again. The real key to discipline isn't willpower. It's design. It's about creating a system so solid, so simple, and so natural that your habits become who you are, not just something you force yourself to do. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether you feel like it. You don't battle yourself in the mirror. You just do it. That's the kind of discipline we're aiming for. Effortless, automatic, unshakable. This book isn't about making you a robot. It's about giving you freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from knowing you can trust yourself. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing, deep down, that when you set a goal, you will follow through. No more half-finished projects. No more guilt from broken promises. No more, I'll start again on Monday. Just consistent, quiet progress that adds up day after day, year after year. Discipline is not punishment. It's not about making life miserable. It's about structure, consistency, and direction. It's the bridge between where you are now and where you want to be. Without discipline, dreams stay dreams. With it, almost anything is possible. But here's the catch. Building discipline isn't flashy. It's not about sudden bursts of motivation. It's about small, invisible actions that compound over time. And that's why so many people quit. They expect big changes overnight. And when they don't see them, they assume discipline doesn't work. That's where this book comes in. Over the next chapters, I'm going to show you exactly how to build habits that don't just survive a few weeks, but last a lifetime. You'll learn why most habit hacks fail, how to design your environment so discipline becomes natural, how to overcome the mental traps that sabotage progress, and how to create momentum so powerful that quitting stops being an option. And here's something you need to know up front. The process is simpler than you think. Discipline isn't about adding more rules, more pressure, or more guilt. It's about subtraction, removing friction, cutting out excuses, and eliminating the invisible obstacles that make change so hard. Once you do that, discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes a habit in itself. If you're reading this, chances are you've already tried and failed before. That's good. Failure means you've experimented. Failure means you've already started walking the path. And now, it's time to do it differently. This time, you're not going to rely on motivation or luck. This time, you're going to rely on principles at work, whether you feel inspired or not. So let me make you a promise. By the end of this book, you'll see discipline differently. You'll see it not as a burden, but as your greatest ally. You'll realize that the habits you've struggled with for years can finally stick. And you'll understand that you don't need to change who you are to be disciplined. You just need to change the way you build your habits. Still, let me warn you, this isn't magic. This isn't an overnight transformation. You won't wake up tomorrow as a completely different person, but you will wake up with the tools to become someone who can transform one day at a time. And when you look back a year from now, you'll barely recognize yourself. Here's why you should keep reading, because this is not just another book on habits. This isn't about just set goals or just wake up early. It's about creating a system that guarantees you'll show up even on the days you don't feel like it. It's about building a life where discipline is natural, not forced. And one more thing, there's a secret I'll share at the end of this book, a principle so powerful, it ties everything together. Without it, even the best systems collapse. With it, discipline becomes unshakable. I won't spoil it now, but as you read, keep your mind open. Everything you'll learn is leading to that one truth. So here's the question. Are you ready? Are you ready to stop starting over? To stop relying on short bursts of motivation? To finally build habits that stick? Habits that feel like second nature? If you are, then let's begin. Because the disciplined life isn't reserved for the few, the strong, or the lucky. It's available to anyone who understands how habits really work. And that means it's available to you. Brought to you by Audiobooks HUB, your source for stories that inspire. Chapter 1. When people think of discipline, they often imagine a strict military officer barking orders or a rigid lifestyle with no room for joy. The word itself feels heavy, almost threatening. But here's the surprising truth. Discipline isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. Real freedom. Think about it. If you wake up every morning and your first battle is with yourself, should I get out of bed now or sleep another 20 minutes? Should I cook a healthy breakfast or just grab junk food? Should I start on my work or scroll my phone for just 5 minutes? Then you're not free. You're trapped in a constant tug of war with your own impulses. And most of the time, your impulses win. Now imagine a different version of yourself. You wake up and simply get out of bed because that's just what you do. You cook a healthy breakfast without questioning it. You start your work on time because that's your rhythm. Suddenly, you're no longer fighting yourself. You're moving smoothly through the day, saving your energy for real challenges, not for internal arguments. That is the freedom discipline gives you, the freedom to live without constantly negotiating with yourself. The first key to building habits that stick is understanding this shift. Discipline is not about force. It's about design. If you think discipline means I have to be strong enough to resist temptation every time, you're setting yourself up for failure. No one is strong enough to fight temptation forever. Even the most disciplined people in the world don't rely on willpower all day long. Instead, they create systems that make the right choice the easy choice and the wrong choice the hard one. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I wanted to cut down on how much time I spent watching TV in the evenings. My goal was simple: read more, watch less. But every night I'd sit on the couch, glance at the remote, and before I knew it, 2 hours had vanished into another show I didn't even care about. I told myself I just needed more willpower. But night after night, I failed. Then I tried something different. I unplugged the TV and moved the remote to a drawer in the other room. Suddenly, turning on the TV was no longer effortless. It required me to get up, plug it back in, and search for the remote. That small barrier was enough to make me pause and think, do I really want this? Or am I just on autopilot? More often than not, I grab a book instead. That wasn't because I suddenly became stronger. It was because I made the desired behavior easier and the undesired behavior harder. That's the foundation of discipline. Shaping your environment so that the habits you want feel natural and the ones you don't want feel inconvenient. Here's another truth you need to understand. You are not weak. You are not broken. If you failed to build habits in the past, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you were relying on the wrong strategy. You were trying to overpower yourself instead of outsmarting yourself. And when you stop seeing discipline as a fight and start seeing it as design, everything changes. Now, let's talk about identity. One of the most powerful ways to build lasting discipline is to stop focusing only on what you want to do and start focusing on who you want to be. If your only goal is, I want to run 3 times a week, that's fine, but it's fragile because every time you skip, you feel like you failed. If instead you say, I am a runner, you shift your identity. A runner might miss a day, but they don't stop running. A writer might have an off week, but they still see themselves as a writer. Identity gives discipline roots. It becomes part of who you are, not just something you do. Here's a small but powerful exercise. Write down a list of identities you want to step into. Not, I want to read more, but I am a reader. Not, I want to save money, but I am a careful steward of my finances. Not, I want to work out, but I am an athlete. Every habit is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Each workout is a vote for being an athlete. Each book read is a vote for being a reader. Each healthy meal is a vote for being someone who respects their body. The votes don't need to be unanimous. You can still make mistakes. What matters is that, over time, the majority of your actions point to the person you want to be. That's how discipline sticks. Of course, even with identity and design, there will be resistance. You'll still have days where you don't feel like doing the thing. That's normal. The secret here is to lower the entry point. Too often, we make habits too big in our minds. I have to run 5 miles. I have to write 1,000 words. I have to meditate for 30 minutes. The pressure becomes so heavy that we procrastinate. But what if instead the rule was simple? Just put on your running shoes. Just open your notebook and write 1 sentence. Just sit and breathe for 1 minute. 9 times out of 10, once you start, you'll keep going. But even if you don't, you still win because you kept the chain alive. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Small wins compound. Over time, those small wins build momentum, and momentum is what carries you through. There's something else I need to tell you, and it's important. Discipline is boring, not in a bad way, but in a stable way. The people you admire, the ones who seem effortlessly consistent, aren't living lives of constant excitement. They're living lives of rhythm. They repeat the same small actions day after day, until the results are undeniable. They're not chasing motivation. They're cultivating habits so ingrained they don't have to think about them anymore. And here's the paradox. Once you accept the boredom, life becomes far more exciting. Because instead of being stuck in cycles of starting and stopping, you're actually moving forward. You're seeing progress, and progress is the most exciting thing in the world. So here's your first assignment. Don't just read this, act on it. Look at one habit you've been struggling with and ask yourself, how can I design my environment to make this habit easier? How can I remove friction for the thing I want to do and add friction for the thing I want to stop? And then ask, what identity do I want this habit to reinforce? Am I just trying to do this? Or am I becoming the kind of person who does this by default? If you start there with design and identity, you'll already be miles ahead of most people. You won't be relying on willpower. You'll be building something deeper. And remember, the freedom you're searching for, the freedom from procrastination, from guilt, from failure, comes not from avoiding discipline, but from embracing it. Because once discipline becomes who you are, you'll finally stop fighting yourself. Chapter 2. Most people believe motivation comes first, and discipline follows. They wait for the right mood, the perfect timing, or that burst of inspiration before they take action. But here's the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's like a friend who shows up late, makes big promises, and disappears when you actually need help. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't wait. It shows up whether you feel like it or not. If you've ever told yourself, I'll start tomorrow when I feel ready, you've already fallen into the trap. The truth is, you'll never feel fully ready. You'll always feel some resistance. And that resistance will never go away completely. The people who look disciplined aren't superhuman. They just learn to act in spite of resistance, not wait for it to vanish. Let's start with a simple principle. Action comes before motivation, not after. Most people think they need motivation to take action. In reality, once you take action, motivation often follows. Think of the times you didn't feel like going to the gym, but once you started moving, you found yourself enjoying it. Or the times you dreaded writing, but after the first few sentences, the words began to flow. The hardest part is always the beginning. This is why discipline is less about feeling ready and more about creating triggers that make starting automatic. If you want to write every morning, don't tell yourself, I'll write when I feel inspired. Instead, create a ritual. Make coffee. Sit at your desk, open the document. That sequence becomes a signal. Over time, your brain learns to associate the ritual with the activity, and resistance shrinks. You don't need motivation, you need momentum. Here's an example from my own life. For years, I struggled with morning workouts. I told myself I just wasn't a morning person. But the truth was simpler. I left the decision for the morning. Each day, I'd wake up and negotiate with myself. Should I go to the gym today? Do I feel like it? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was no. Then I tried something different. The night before, I laid out my workout clothes next to bed. Shoes, socks, shirt, everything. When I woke up, there was no debate. I simply put them on. And once I had them on, skipping the workout felt silly. That small design change made all the difference. Here's a lesson in this. The more decisions you leave to the moment, the weaker your discipline will be. Every decision drains energy, and every choice opens a door to excuses. The way to win is to remove the decision altogether. Prepare the night before. Set the cue. Automate the start. Because once you're moving, the resistance fades. But let's go deeper. Why is it so hard to get started in the first place? It's because of a mental bias called present bias. Your brain is wired to value immediate comfort over future rewards. Lying on the couch feels good now. Eating the cookie feels good now. Skipping the workout feels good now. The benefits of discipline, health, savings, progress, pride, are delayed. That's why your brain resists. The solution isn't to magically love delayed rewards. It's to bring the benefits closer. You do this by attaching small, immediate rewards to disciplined behavior. For example, if you want to build a habit of running, pair it with something you enjoy. Maybe you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast while running. If you want to read more, create a cozy ritual with tea and a comfortable chair. By linking discipline with small pleasures, you train your brain to crave the habit instead of resist it. This brings us to another important truth. Discipline doesn't mean suffering. It doesn't mean denying yourself joy. It means aligning joy with progress, not with sabotage. People who make discipline sustainable don't grit their teeth forever. They find ways to make the journey enjoyable, so they don't burn out. Here's something else that helps. Track your wins. Progress is often invisible, and when we don't see it, we lose motivation. By writing down each day you showed up, you remind yourself that the work matters. A calendar with X's, a journal entry, a simple check mark. It doesn't matter how you track it, as long as you make progress visible. The visual proof becomes its own motivation. Of course, no matter how well you design your environment or how many cues you create, there will still be days when you want to quit. That's inevitable. This is where the 2-minute rule comes in. The rule is simple. If you don't want to do the full habit, do a version that takes 2 minutes or less. Don't want to go to the gym? Do 1 push-up. Don't want to write? Write 1 sentence. Don't want to meditate? Breathe deeply for 2 minutes. Why does this work? Because the hardest part is showing up. Once you start, you usually keep going. And even if you don't, you've still succeeded. You kept the chain alive. You reinforce the identity of being someone who shows up, and that identity is far more powerful than a perfect streak. Let's pause here and talk about failure. Because no matter how disciplined you become, you will fail. You will miss days. You will slip. The difference between disciplined people and everyone else isn't that they never fail. It's how quickly they recover. Most people treat failure as proof they're not disciplined. I skipped a workout. See, I knew I couldn't stick with it. And then they quit altogether. Disciplined people, on the other hand, see failure as feedback. They ask, why did I miss? Was the habit too big? Was the trigger unclear? Was my environment set up against me? Then they adjust and get back on track. Here's the mindset shift. Missing once doesn't matter. Missing twice in a row does. 1 mistake won't ruin you, but 2 mistakes start a new pattern. That's why the goal is not perfection, but recovery. The faster you recover, the stronger your discipline becomes. So here's what I want you to remember from this chapter. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop expecting to feel ready. Start small. Create cues, remove decisions, and reward yourself for progress. Make it easy to begin, and forgive yourself quickly when you slip. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about building momentum that carries you forward even when motivation fails. If you can master this, acting first, letting motivation catch up, you'll discover something powerful. Discipline isn't about feeling like doing the right thing. It's about becoming the kind of person who does the right thing regardless of feelings. And once you learn that, you'll never look at discipline the same way again. Chapter 3. One of the biggest reasons habits fail is because people underestimate the power of the environment. They believe their discipline is purely a matter of willpower, as if they can stand in the middle of temptation and always say no. But the truth is, your surroundings are constantly shaping your behavior, whether you notice it or not. If your environment makes bad habits easy and good habits hard, you will eventually give in. Think about it. If a plate of cookies is sitting on your kitchen counter, how many times can you walk past it before you break? Probably not many. But if the cookies aren't there, if you have to drive to the store to get them, you'll most likely forget about them. On the other hand, if there's a bowl of fruit sitting in plain sight, chances are you'll grab an apple without even thinking. Same person, same self-control, different environment, different result. This is why disciplined people don't necessarily have stronger willpower. They have better systems. They've learned how to arrange their lives so the right choices are visible, easy, and convenient, while the wrong choices are hidden, inconvenient, and out of reach. In other words, they don't fight temptation head-on. They avoid it altogether. There's a principle I like to call friction. Friction is the effort it takes to perform a behavior. The more friction a behavior has, the less likely you are to do it. The less friction it has, the more likely you are. Want to watch TV? If the remote is right there, it's easy. If the remote is hidden, the TV is unplugged, and you have to log into an account first, suddenly the friction is higher and the temptation fades. Want to work out? If your gym bag is packed and ready by the door, friction is low. If your workout clothes are buried in the laundry, friction is high and your motivation drops. Discipline, then, is largely about managing friction. Reduce friction for the habits you want. Increase friction for the habits you don't. Let's break this down into something practical. Take a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. One for habits you want to build and one for habits you want to break. Under each, write one way to adjust your environment to add or remove friction. For example, want to read more? Keep a book on your nightstand. Remove the phone charger from beside your bed so you're not tempted to scroll. Want to exercise more? Put your workout shoes where you'll trip over them in the morning. Want to eat healthier? Keep healthy snacks in plain view and put junk food out of sight. Or better yet, don't buy it all. Want to stop wasting time on social media? Log out after every use or delete the apps from your home screen. This isn't about willpower. It's about engineering. Now, let's talk about another aspect of environment. People. Whether you realize it or not, the people you spend time with influence your habits dramatically. If you're surrounded by people who complain, procrastinate, and avoid responsibility, you'll slowly drift into the same patterns. If you're surrounded by people who push themselves, hold high standards, and live with discipline, you'll rise to their level. There's a saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's not just a cliche. Your social environment acts as a mirror. If discipline is normal in your circle, it becomes normal for you. If sloppiness is normal, that becomes your standard too. So ask yourself, who's influencing me? Are the people around me pulling me forward or holding me back? And if you can't change your circle right away, then at least start changing what you consume. Read books by disciplined people. Listen to podcasts that challenge you. Watch content that inspires you. Your environment isn't just physical, it's mental. The voices you allow into your head shape your standards. Let me share a personal story. At one point in my life, I was stuck in a loop of procrastination. I wanted to write more, but every evening I found myself scrolling social media, watching videos, wasting hours. I thought the problem was laziness. But when I really looked at it, I realized my environment was designed for distraction. My phone was always buzzing. My desk was cluttered with random things. My computer had every shortcut to entertainment right on the home screen. Of course, I was distracted. It was a natural outcome of my surroundings. So I made changes. I turned off notifications. I deleted the apps I wasted the most time on. I cleared my desk and kept only a notebook, a pen, and my laptop. I set up a separate browser just for writing, with no bookmarks, no shortcuts, no temptations. Suddenly, writing became easier, not because I suddenly found motivation, but because I removed the obstacles that made discipline hard. That experience taught me something I've never forgotten. Most of our struggles with discipline aren't moral failings. They're environmental setups. We blame ourselves for being weak, when in reality, we're just swimming against a current we designed without realizing it. Change the current, and the swim becomes easier. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce this idea is to create what I call default wins. A default win is when the easiest option is also the right one. For example, if your default lunch is fast food because it's the most convenient, you're fighting an uphill battle. But if your default lunch is the healthy meal you prepped in advance, discipline becomes effortless. Think of your environment as a script that nudges you towards certain behaviors. The key is to write the script in your favor. If you don't, someone else will, advertisers, tech companies, even other people's habits. If you don't take control of your environment, you're letting it control you. Now, here's the challenge. Take a look at your environment right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, look around your room, your desk, your kitchen. Ask yourself, what behaviors does this environment encourage? What behaviors does it discourage? Be honest, and then ask, how can I make one small change today to shift the balance? It could be as simple as moving your phone out of reach during work hours, or putting your running shoes by the door, or setting out a water bottle on your desk instead of soda. These small environmental tweaks may not feel dramatic, but they're far more powerful than forcing yourself to resist temptation day after day. Because here's the truth. The battle for discipline is won long before the moment of choice. It's won in the setup. By the time you're standing in front of the fridge, hungry and tired, the decision has already been made by what you stocked inside. By the time you're sitting on the couch after work, exhausted, the decision has already been made by whether your workout clothes are waiting or buried. That's why Chapter 3 is all about this one principle. Discipline is not just about inner strength. It's about outer structure. Change your environment and you change your behavior. Chapter 4. Life today rarely demands that we pick up a sword or shield. Yet every man faces battles, subtle, psychological, and relentless. The modern battlefield is the workplace, the traffic jam, the endless stream of digital notifications, the weight of financial pressures, and the conflicts in relationships. Though blood may not be shed, the inner turmoil can be just as exhausting. A stoic man approaches these battles not with aggression, but with mastery of self. Marcus Aurelius, Riding as emperor, dealt daily with betrayals, wars, and political storms. Yet his meditations focus less on conquering others and more on conquering himself. That is the modern man's task as well. To remain calm when insulted, to stand firm when rejected, and to act with reason rather than anger when provoked. The modern Stoic warrior recognizes three key truths. You cannot control the battlefield, only your response. Whether the boss's unfair criticism or the chaos of the economy, external events are beyond your grip. What remains within your command is how you interpret and react. Discipline is your armor. The temptation to scroll endlessly, to lash out online, or to waste time in distraction is the enemy's weapon. Discipline of attention, speech, and action protects you. Purpose is your weapon. A man without purpose is defenseless, but a man with a clear why can endure almost anyhow, as Viktor Frankl observed. The Stoic warrior carries his mission into every day, knowing that without it, he is easily defeated by trivial things. Imagine standing in a boardroom where colleagues mock your ideas. The untrained man reacts in anger or silence. The Stoic warrior listens, separate opinion from fact, and responds calmly, defending what matters without being ruled by ego. Or imagine sitting in traffic, late for an appointment. The average man fumes, honks, and curses. The Stoic warrior breathes, accepts the delay, and uses the time for reflection rather than rage. The modern battles are constant, but they are not insurmountable. Every time you refuse to be owned by anger, fear, or distraction, you win. Every time you choose reason over reaction, you sharpen your inner blade. The Stoic warrior does not live in fantasy. He does not dream of peace in a world that will always be chaotic. Instead, he trains his soul to be unshaken no matter the storm. That is strength. That is victory. Chapter 5. The modern man is bombarded by temptations unlike any generation before him. Food engineered for addiction, endless pornography, instant shopping, dopamine hits from likes and notifications. Everything is designed to capture desire and enslave attention. The Stoic path does not demand rejection of pleasure, but mastery over it. Epictetus reminded his students, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. To live as a slave to impulses, whether lust, greed, or indulgence, is to forfeit sovereignty over the self. The Stoic does not suppress desire out of hatred for life, but out of love for freedom. There are 3 steps to mastering temptation. Awareness. You must first recognize the pull. Notice when you reach for your phone without thinking, when you crave a sugary snack after stress, or when lust hijacks your mind. Without awareness, you're already conquered. Deliberation. Ask, will this bring me closer to strength or weaken me? Not every indulgence is harmful, but each repeated surrender shapes who you become. The Stoic evaluates rather than obeys. Restraint. Freedom is choosing when to say no. Discipline in small things, skipping a pointless scroll, delaying gratification. Practicing moderation builds the strength for greater battles. Seneca wrote that the greatest wealth is to need nothing. In a society that trains men to constantly want, this is revolutionary. The Stoic man enjoys what life provides, but he does not cling. He can walk away from pleasure without bitterness, because he knows that his worth is not chained to it. Consider 2 men. One spends his nights lost in indulgence, seeking quick pleasures, only to wake with regret. The other allows himself pleasure, but never lets it rule him. He can step away at any moment. Which man is free? Which man is a master of himself? Temptation will never disappear. The advertisements will not stop. The urges will not vanish. But the Stoic warrior trains daily to ensure that he commands his desires, not the other way around. That is true power, the quiet, invisible strength of a man who cannot be bought, seduced, or enslaved by what others chase mindlessly. Chapter 6. A man without routine is like a soldier without armor, vulnerable to every strike of chaos. The Stoics understood that the mind, left undirected, will drift toward weakness. Therefore, they built their lives upon steady rituals, daily habits that forged strength and shielded them from disorder. Marcus Aurelius began each morning reminding himself that he would meet liars, egoists, and selfish men, but that it was his duty to remain steadfast. Seneca advised ending the day with self-examination. What bad habit have you cured today? What vice resisted? In what respect are you better? These were not casual reflections, but a daily armor against decline. Routine is not rigidity. It is not about filling every hour with mechanical repetition. It is about anchoring yourself to unshakable practices that protect you from drifting. For the Stoic, routine is a weapon, a shield against temptation, procrastination, and weakness. Consider the man who wakes whenever he feels like it, checks his phone, scrolls aimlessly, rushes out the door. His day begins with chaos, and chaos follows him until night. Compare him to the man who rises early, breathes deeply before the world begins, and dedicates his first moments to reflection or writing. One is armored, the other naked before the battle of life. To build routine, you must design anchors, fixed points around which your day revolves. This could be a morning practice of writing, an afternoon walk without devices, or an evening of reviewing your actions. These anchors stabilize the mind. But beware, routine can harden into mindless repetition. The Stoic does not seek routine for routine's sake, but for mastery of self. If a habit ceases to serve the greater purpose of discipline and growth, it must be refined or replaced. The armor must remain flexible, not brittle. Think of routine as training a war horse. With patience and consistency, the beast becomes obedient, strong, and reliable. Left untrained, it is wild, chaotic, and dangerous. Your mind is that horse. Discipline tames it. Routine commands it. When life strikes, the man of routine does not falter, because his foundation is already set. The blows land, but his armor holds. Chapter 7. A man who cannot say no is a man without boundaries. He is pulled by every request, every distraction, every empty invitation. The Stoics saw such a life as slavery. For the one who cannot refuse is not free. Discipline is not only about doing what must be done, it is about refusing what weakens you. Seneca warned that life is short not because time is scarce, but because we waste so much on the trivial. To guard your time, your energy, your mind, you must master the art of refusal. The modern world is built on intrusion. Notifications, advertisements, gossip, obligations. Each one claws at your attention. If you yield to all, you have no self left. Every yes to distraction is a no to your own growth. But saying no is difficult. We fear offending others. We fear missing out. We fear silence. The Stoic man must remember, a single hour wasted cannot be reclaimed. To decline is not cruelty, it is wisdom. There is power in refusal. It sharpens your will. It proves that you are not ruled by impulse or pressure. Each no is a small victory, a reminder that your life belongs to you. Imagine two men. The first accepts every invitation, checks every message, eats every offered sweet, and lives scattered, exhausted, resentful. The second chooses deliberately. He declines what does not serve his path. He is lighter, focused, unshaken. The difference is not talent, but discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Extend this. If it does not strengthen you, do not accept it." Every no clears space for what matters. The man who can say no when it counts is feared and respected. Feared because he cannot be manipulated. Respected because his life is his own. Chapter 8. The world admires sudden victories. The quick rise, the overnight success, the explosive achievement. But the Stoic knows that true strength is not in flashes of brilliance. It is in the slow, patient endurance that outlasts storms, failures, and fatigue. Endurance is not glamorous. It is not the roar of triumph, but the quiet decision to keep going when the body aches, when the mind doubts, when every reason quit seems justified. The Stoic man embraces endurance as the foundation of all discipline. Without it, courage collapses, routines fail, and ambitions wither. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." A simple command, yet the entire weight of Stoic philosophy rests in those words. Life will not always offer ease. Pain, delay, betrayal, rejection, these are inevitable. The weak man resists reality and breaks. The Stoic accepts reality and persists. The myth of the easy path. Modern society preaches comfort as the highest goal. Make life easier. Choose convenience. Avoid struggle. Yet the men who swallow this promise find themselves restless, dissatisfied, weak. For comfort without struggle breeds emptiness. Muscles atrophy without resistance, and so does character. Endurance is built the same way as muscle, through resistance. To lift weight, you must strain against it. To grow in life, you must endure challenges that test you. The man who avoids hardship avoids growth. The man who endures hardship gains strength. Imagine a mountain climber. The wind cuts his face, the stones bruise his knees, the summit seems impossibly far. Every instinct tells him to stop. But with each painful step, he hardens. By the time he reaches the peak, his body is battered, but his spirit unbreakable. This is endurance in its purest form, the fire that purifies. Seneca compared hardship to fire. A weak substance burns to ash, but gold becomes pure in the furnace. Endurance is the proof of what you are made of. The moments when life scorches you are not punishments, but opportunities to strengthen your core. The man who endures learns to suffer without resentment. He understands that pain is temporary, but surrender scars the soul. To quit once is to train yourself to quit again. To endure once is to build the habit of persistence. It is not only physical pain that requires endurance, but also the grind of repetition. The soldier who trains daily, the writer who works despite lack of inspiration, the father who provides without applause, all endure. The Stoics value this ordinary heroism above grand gestures. Endurance in daily life. Endurance is not limited to the battlefield or the storm. It is in the mundane. It is waking up early when you would rather sleep. It is holding your tongue when anger burns your chest. It is continuing to work when no one notices. These small acts forge the silent strength that others admire but rarely understand. The modern man fails here because he confuses comfort with happiness. But ask yourself, when have you felt truly alive? Was it in the softness of the couch, scrolling endlessly? Or was it in the struggle? After a long run, a finished project, a hard conversation faced with courage? Endurance gives meaning to effort. The enemy of endurance, complaint. Endurance dies where complaint is born. The man who constantly complains suffers twice, once from the hardship itself, and again from his resentment. The Stoic strips away this waste. To endure silently is not to suppress emotions, but to choose strength over weakness. Complaints change nothing. Action and acceptance change everything. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Endurance is precisely this. Not control over circumstances, but mastery of your response. Building endurance like a Stoic. Endurance is not gifted at birth. It is trained. To cultivate it, embrace small discomforts. Walk instead of driving. Take cold showers. Skip unnecessary luxuries. Hardship becomes less frightening when practiced voluntarily. Delay gratification. Resist the urge for immediate pleasure. Postpone the dessert, the purchase, the distraction. Each act of patience strengthens your capacity to wait. Reframe pain. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Hardship becomes training when viewed as preparation rather than punishment. Stay present. The mind panics when it imagines endless suffering. Endure only the present moment, and you will find it always bearable. Honor small victories. Every time you endure, no matter how small, recognize the strength you built. Endurance is cumulative. It grows with each decision. The example of Stoic endurance. Consider Admiral James Stockdale, a U.S. naval officer captured during the Vietnam War. He endured 7 years of torture and imprisonment. Later, he credited the Stoic philosophy of Epictetus for his survival. He said, I never lost faith in the end of the story. Stockdale understood that while he could not control his captors, he could control his mind. His endurance was not passive, but active, a constant choice to remain unbroken. This is the heart of Stoic endurance, not blind suffering, but purposeful resistance. It is a refusal to let external trials corrupt the inner fortress. Endurance is a legacy. What will those around you remember? Not how often you sought pleasure, but how firmly you stood in difficulty. Endurance is contagious. A man who does not break inspires others to hold firm. His strength becomes their shield. In the end, endurance is not about surviving storms. It is about becoming the kind of man storms cannot destroy. The Stoic endures because he knows that every hardship endured is a step toward invincibility of the soul. Chapter 9. The greatest threat to modern man is not war, nor famine, nor even disease. It is distraction. We live in an age where attention is the most valuable currency, and everyone is trying to steal it. The Stoic knew that a scattered mind is a weak mind. To live with power, a man must master the art of focus. Epictetus warned. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. What did he mean? He meant that focus requires ignoring what others chase. The gossip, the noise, the endless opinions of the crowd. These are traps. To focus is to choose deliberately what deserves your mind. The battle for attention. Imagine you are in a crowded marketplace with dozens of merchants shouting for your attention. One waves bright fabrics, another tempts you with sweet fruit, another offers promises of wealth. If you stop at every booth, you leave with nothing but exhaustion. This is the modern digital world. Every notification, every headline, every video competes for your focus. The man without discipline drifts endlessly. He opens his phone to check a message and loses an hour. He begins a task but abandons it halfway when another demand arises. His energy leaks in 100 directions, leaving nothing accomplished. But the Stoic sees attention as sacred. It is the one resource that defines a man's life. What you give your focus to is what you become. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to be distracted by trifles, but to keep the mind fixed on duty and virtue. Focus is a form of power. Focus is not merely productivity. It is sovereignty. A man who can control his attention controls his destiny. While others are pulled like puppets by trends, impulses, and distractions, the Stoics stand still, eyes fixed on the task that matters. Think of an archer. His bow is strong, his arrow sharp, but if his eyes wander, he misses a target. The disciplined man is that archer. He wastes no glance on what does not serve his aim. He is ruthless in eliminating distractions because he knows that each small loss of focus is a theft from his own life. The enemies of focus. Disorder. A cluttered environment leads to a cluttered mind. The Stoic keeps his surroundings simple to protect his attention. Multitasking. To do many things at once is to do none well. The Stoics taught single-mindedness, one action at a time, with full presence. Restlessness. Many men are addicted not to distraction itself, but to the relief it provides from discomfort. To sit still, to stay with one task, feels painful. The Stoic trains himself to resist this impulse. Noise, not just literal noise, but the endless chatter of media, gossip, and empty conversation. The Stoic shields his ears as he shields his eyes. Training focus. Focus can be trained like a muscle. To cultivate it, choose your aim. Each day, define your most important task. Ask, if I did only this today, would it be enough? Begin there. Set boundaries. Remove temptations before they arise. Leave the phone in another room. Block distracting sites. Simplify your environment. Practice presence. Whether eating, speaking, or working, give your full attention to the act. The Stoics believed in living each moment as if it were your last. Half attention is half living. Endure boredom. Do not flee the dull moment with a quick distraction. Stay with it. Boredom is the doorway to focus. Protect solitude. Every man needs time alone, away from the noise. In solitude, the mind clears, priorities sharpen, and focus is restored. The Stoic example. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, bore the weight of an empire. Armies, politics, crises, all demanded his attention. Yet in the chaos, he wrote in his journal, not for others but for himself. In stolen moments, he returned his focus to philosophy, to self-mastery, to the pursuit of virtue. If the ruler of the known world could find focus, what excuse has the modern man? Focus and freedom. Focus is not about harsh restriction. It is about liberation. The man who cannot focus is enslaved to every distraction. The man who can focus is free to choose his path. When you can direct your mind where you wish, you no longer live as a slave to impulse or noise. A Stoic does not waste energy fighting distraction endlessly. Instead, he builds an environment, habits, and mindset that protect his attention. His life becomes like a river, narrow, deep, and strong, rather than a shallow puddle that evaporates in the sun. The discipline to finish. Focus is not only about starting, it is about finishing. Many men begin projects with enthusiasm, only to abandon them when the novelty fades. The Stoic does not rely on passion, but on discipline. He sees the task through, however dull or difficult it becomes. This persistence is itself a form of focus, the refusal to scatter energy across half-finished things. The man who finishes one worthy task has more power than the man who begins 100 and completes none. The quiet reward of focus. What does the man of focus gain? Peace. While others drown in noise, his mind is still. While others panic in distraction, he moves with calm purpose. The world admires such men because they are rare. They appear unshakable, not because they have fewer demands, but because they know what deserves their attention and guard it fiercely. In the end, focus is a form of love for your time, your life, your destiny. To waste attention is to betray yourself. To master focus is to honor the gift of existence. Chapter 10. Discipline without reflection is like a sword without a sheath. It is sharp but dangerous, uncontrolled, and easily lost. The Stoics understood that action alone is insufficient. To live well, a man must pause, examine, and learn from his own life. Reflection is the forge where experience is tempered into wisdom. Modern men are allergic to reflection. The world moves fast, and silence is uncomfortable. We fill our hours with noise, scrolling, talking, and reacting, avoiding the stillness that shows us who we truly are. But without reflection, every mistake repeats, every weakness deepens, and every opportunity for growth is wasted. The Daily Mirror. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal, not for others, but as a mirror for himself. Each day he asked, what did I do well? Where did I fail? Did I act with reason, courage, and justice? This practice kept him grounded, honest, and disciplined. Reflection is not self-criticism for its own sake. It is self-correction. Imagine a soldier returning from battle. Without reviewing his strategy, his movements, and his decisions, the next battle will repeat the same errors. Life is no different. Each day is a battle, and reflection teaches you which strategies succeed and which fail. Reflection as discipline. Reflection is itself an act of discipline. It requires time, attention, and honesty. You cannot reflect superficially and expect transformation. You must confront your errors, examine your motives, and acknowledge uncomfortable truths. Here's how reflection strengthens discipline. Identifies patterns. By looking back, you see repeated mistakes, distractions, and weaknesses. Awareness is the first step to correction. Reinforces successes. Reflection reminds you of victories, no matter how small, and encourages repetition. Aligns actions with values. Without pausing, it is easy to drift into behavior that contradicts your principles. Reflection restores alignment, builds self-trust. By reviewing your own decisions objectively, you learn to trust your judgment and rely less on external approval. The tools of reflection. The Stoics recommended simple but powerful tools. Journaling. Each night, write down your successes, failures, and lessons. Ask, what did I control today? What did I fail to control? Meditation on values. Recall your guiding principles. Did your actions honor them? Pause before action. Even a brief moment of thought before reacting. Counting to 10, considering consequences, builds mental muscle. Periodic review, weekly or monthly. Review your journal and progress. Patterns become clear and adjustments can be made. Reflection is not a luxury. It is the engine that converts experience into wisdom. The man who fails to reflect drifts, like a ship without a rudder, forever tossed by circumstance. The man who reflects steers with purpose. Facing the truth. Reflection requires courage. It demands confronting your weaknesses without excuse, your failures without blame, your ego without protection. Many men avoid this because it is uncomfortable. The Stoic embraces discomfort as training. The moment you see yourself honestly, without denial, is the moment discipline becomes more than action. It becomes character. You no longer act blindly. You act with intention, learning from the past to shape a stronger future. The cycle of improvement. Reflection is not a single act, but a cycle. Act, observe, reflect, adjust, act again. Each iteration builds stronger habits, sharper focus, and a more resilient mind. Over time, small corrections accumulate into profound transformation. The man who reflects daily will find himself months later living a life he once thought impossible. Reflection and freedom. The Stoic seeks freedom not only from external chaos, but from internal weakness. Reflection grants this freedom. When you understand your motives, your tendencies, and your patterns, you are no longer a slave to habit, impulse, or circumstance. You become the deliberate architect of your life. Consider the modern man who reacts constantly. Emails, messages, demands, distractions. He is always busy, yet achieves little. Contrast him with the Stoic man who pauses, considers, and then acts decisively. One is pulled in every direction. The other moves like an arrow, directed, purposeful, unstoppable. Reflection as a legacy. A man who reflects leaves a legacy not only in achievements, but in wisdom. He understands the consequences of actions, the value of time, and the cost of inattention. His life becomes a blueprint, demonstrating that discipline is not merely doing, but understanding, adjusting, and growing. In essence, reflection is the final layer of armor. Action builds a shield, focus sharpens a blade, and reflection teaches you when, where, and how to use both. Without it, even the strongest discipline falters. With it, you are unshakable. Conclusion. By now, you have walked the path of discipline. Its principles, practices, and the subtle ways it shapes every aspect of life. From building habits that last, mastering desire, creating routines, saying no, to enduring hardships and reflecting deeply on your actions, you've explored the tools that make a man unshakable. Discipline is not punishment. It is not a rigid set of rules to make life joyless. On the contrary, discipline is the gateway to freedom. A man without discipline is a slave to impulses, distractions, and external circumstances. A disciplined man, however, chooses his path, governs his actions, and shapes his destiny. Every chapter in this book has shown that the secret to lasting change is not motivation or fleeting willpower. It is structure, awareness, and a consistent application of choice. Habits are built not overnight, but day by day, anchored in small actions that compound into unbreakable strength. Environment, focus, endurance, and reflection all work together to create a life where success is not a chance event, but a natural outcome. Consider the Stoic approach as a lifelong practice. There will be setbacks, moments of weakness, and times when the easier path tempts you. The difference is that now, with knowledge and understanding, you have the tools to rise again. You can pause, reflect, realign, and act with intention. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen the mind, refine habits, and deepen your control over your life. Discipline is also deeply personal. It is not about competing with others, seeking approval, or living by someone else's standards. It is about mastering yourself, living by your principles, and honoring the time you have. Each small victory over distraction, desire, or laziness is a victory over the limitations that would otherwise define your life. The beauty of discipline is its compounding effect. One small, disciplined choice today leads to another tomorrow. One moment of reflection guides a better decision next week. 1 hour of focus builds momentum that propels you toward long-term goals. Over time, what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. You become the man capable of handling adversity, achieving mastery, and living with quiet confidence. Finally, remember that discipline is not a destination. It is a journey. Every day presents a new opportunity to practice, refine, and grow. The habits you build, the routines you follow, and the choices you make shape not only the quality of your days, but the kind of man you become. Live intentionally. Guard your attention. Endure challenges. Reflect on your actions. Say no when necessary. Build routines that support your goals. Master your desires. And above all, act consistently. These are not abstract lessons. They are the blueprint for a life of freedom, strength, and purpose. The disciplined man is free, not because life is easy, but because he has forged himself into someone capable of handling whatever life throws his way. He is strong, calm, and purposeful. He is unshakable. And in that, he finds not only power but peace.